For the 6th season in a row, Walters is the official bar of the Nats Chat podcast, located across the street from the ballpark, just off South Capitol Street.
Suarez with a 2-0. Swinging a long drive, right field. Forget about it. It is going and long gone. It clears the Red Sox bullpen, and the Nationals on the board. 3 pitches in, 1-0. Another leadoff home run for James Wood, his 6th of the season, 21st home run overall. An absolute no-doubter off the fastball from Ranger Suarez. What a start for the Nats. The 1-2 from Mikolas. Swinging a fly ball, deep left center field. Wood looking up. Contreras flips the bat a mile high in the sky as the ball goes way over the monster for a 3-run homer. It's 3-1 Boston. Contreras is just now reaching first base. He'll circle the bases for his 18th home run of the year. No balls, 2 strikes. The pitch on the way to Bibas. Swing and a miss. Struck him out with a changeup, and the game is over. The Nationals dropped the series opener in Boston 6-3. The Red Sox staying hot, their longest winning streak of the season. The Nationals couldn't cool them off. Boston has won 5 in a row.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Fenway Park, a venue very familiar to Paul Toboni. The Nats this past October 1st announced the hiring of Toboni as president of baseball operations. He had been Boston's senior vice president, assistant general manager since November 2023, had worked for the Red Sox since January 2015 when he started as a baseball operations intern for the Red Sox. Toboni on Monday afternoon did a session with reporters, and he during that session addressed how he is approaching the 2026 MLB trade deadline. We'll get to that, but the Nats on Monday night did lose a 6-3 loss at the Red Sox in game 1 of a 3-game series. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now back at 500, 43-43, run differential of +2. The Red Sox are just 37-46, but with a run differential of +8, and they now have won 5 consecutive games. Good to have you with us. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Mason Kalfas. He is the top legal recruiter in Washington, D.C. Mason and his team at Zenith Legal specialize in placing partners, associates, and senior government lawyers at elite firms across Washington, D.C. and the country. You can reach Mason at 202-486-3535. The Nats' 2 best batters who had cooled off, they each had a big hit on Monday night. James Wood began the game with a homer. C.J. Abrams had a 2-run double. Starting pitcher Miles Mikolas was really bad, but then really good. But Mark, first time in the 6-season history of the Nats Chat podcast that you are coming to us from Fenway Park, which opened in 1912. We are making Nats Chat history as we record this late night on Monday night. Very nice.
And officially the 30th Major League ballpark that we have done an episode of this show from. This was the last one, believe it or not, on the list. Now, there is a current one I haven't been to in Sacramento. I'm actually not planning to make that trip coming up out of the All-Star break. We also did remember an episode from Williamsport. So I'm just going to say this is 30 out of 30 major league parks since we've started the show that I can say I've done it from. I count this as completing the circuit. I'll defer to you on that, but I think it counts. I got to go inside the Green Monster today. That counts for something, right?
Absolutely. And you signed the Monster, did you not?
I did. I've actually signed it before. It's not the first time I've been in there. I could not find my name from the past in there, but I signed it again. And a bunch of the Nationals went in there. For a lot of them, it was their first time. It was very cool to see their reactions to it all. And I discovered a little blast from the past from the team's last trip here in 2024. Joey Meneses' signature was inside the Green Monster. If I remember right, he had a good series. Kind of been all downhill since then, unfortunately, for Joey.
So anyone can sign the Monster? You don't have to be a player or a coach or a manager or anything like that? Like if you visit the Monster, you can sign the Monster?
If you can get inside it, yes. I mean, I don't think everybody can go in there. You got to have some special privileges for that. But yeah, no, there's plenty of names and a lot of them written over the years. It's hard to find empty space in there. I mean, that it is head to toe across the entire thing, people's signatures. If I had more time, I would have loved to just like really peruse over it and see whose name I could find. But I mean, very cool to experience that. Not that I don't already feel this way, but a moment like that really allows me to appreciate how cool it is what I get to do for a living.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, again, 1912 is when Fenway Park opened. I mean, you think about everything that has happened in that ballpark over the last 100 plus years, as far as what happened in the ballpark on Monday night. So an off game for the Nats offense, just 3 runs, just 7 hits, which were a home run, a double, and 5 singles. So just 2 walks, 12 strikeouts. The Nats did go 2 for 4 with runners in scoring position, had mixed results against Red Sox starting pitcher Ranger Suarez. So a few things with the Red Sox. They're playing really well right now, are coming off a big 4-game sweep of the New York Yankees, including a big win on Sunday Night Baseball. I believe that's the first time ever that we had Yankees-Red Sox on Sunday Night Baseball. I'll have to double check that. But the Red Sox starting pitching has been so good lately, and Ranger Suarez has been a big part of that. He in this game allowed 3 runs in 6 innings, but with 8 strikeouts versus 1 walk. Suarez now ERA of 2.94 over 16 games, all starts in this regular season. Now, the Nats did begin the game with a home run. James Wood homered. He is the Nats starting left fielder. Yes, he was in left field in this game. Number 1 batter, 1 for 4, solo shot. Wood in the Nats 1 run first, a leadoff homer to right field. And the homer was impressive, a projected 441 feet per Statcast. But there wasn't much else with the Nats offense the rest of the game. The biggest threat beyond what Wood did in that first inning came in a 2-run 6 for the Nats. C.J. Abrams, who went hitless in the Nats winning 2 out of 3 games at the Baltimore Orioles this past weekend. He is the Nats starting shortstop and number 4 batter, 1 for 4 with a 2-run double. He and that Nats 2-run 6 had a 1-out, bases loaded 2-run double down the right field line to cut the Nats deficit to 6-3. So we had seen Wood and Abrams cool off. Good to see each guy with a big hit in this game, but not much else happening for the Nats offensively in this game.
No, and that was obviously disappointing because you felt like they at least would have a shot at making this thing interesting. Now, Red Sox pitching is not just Suarez. The Red Sox pitching staff is on a roll right now. This was their 12th consecutive quality start, something that they had not done as a team since 1988 when Roger Clemens was a young ace for this team. So that tells you how well they have pitched here lately. That said, they just had a nice weekend in spite of the fact that James Wood and C.J. Abrams were not a part of it. So when you get those 2 guys going, you're thinking, okay, this is going to be a big night for the offense. And unfortunately, the rest of the group just didn't do it. Between Wood's homer to lead off the game and the top of the 6th, when they finally had that little bit of a rally going, they only had 1 runner reach base, and that was a walk by Andres Chaparro. So they just had nothing going. Obviously, they're playing from behind for the most part all night. They did have the 1 rally. I think that was an important double for Abrams to get that feel good. It was 0 for 15 at that point. And then you're thinking, okay, 2 more in scoring position. Here's really a chance to make a game of this. And unfortunately, Dylan Cruz soft liner to second, Jacob Young weak grounder back to the mound. And that was that. And they really didn't do anything else the rest of the night.
Only 1 Nat had a multi-hit game. Third baseman Curtis Mead, he is the Nats' number 3 batter, went 2 for 4 with a couple of singles. I did want to make this point about Ranger Suarez. So the Red Sox signed him this past January as a free agent, signed him to a 5-year contract worth a reported $130 million. And as mentioned, he's having a really good season. ERA at 2.94 over 16 starts. And I do think that this is instructive. When we talk about the Nats maybe, possibly, hopefully spending some significant money this coming offseason, right? When you look at starting pitching, and spending significant money on free agent starting pitching is risky, we all get that. But, you don't have to spend $200 million, $300 million to find good starting pitching in the free agent market. Ranger Suarez is on a 5-year, $130 million deal. In today's MLB, that is not bonkers money. That is a doable, sensible contract. And here he is with an ERA under 3, doing a good job for Boston. And I think this is the way to be thinking about what the Nats maybe, possibly, hopefully could do in free agency this coming offseason. The Lerner ownership group doesn't have to be asked to spend $300 million on some starting pitcher. You can find good starting pitching, if not on the cheap, then, on a sensible deal like this Ranger Suarez contract.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds great. The thing I'd be worried about is the last pitcher that they gave, second to last pitcher they gave a $100 million contract to was Patrick Corbin. And do they still have sticker shock, from that? And so even though to you and me, that 5-year deal for Suarez doesn't sound outrageous, is even that something that the Lerners are a little bit reluctant to do? But that would, to me, underscore the value of approaching Foster Griffin as soon as possible and saying, hey, let's make a deal with you. I'm not saying that Foster Griffin is Ranger Suarez, although he has pitched about as well as he has this year. But I can tell you, I'd be stunned if the market for Griffin goes that high. If you could get him for 3 years at a much more affordable price, I would be really pushing for that right now. And we'll get into what Paul Toboni had to say before the game about a variety of topics. I asked him about Griffin in particular.
We're not at the point where we have to make a decision on that, but Foster's been awesome for us. I couldn't say enough great things about him, and he's going to thrive wherever he is in the future. So we'll see what comes as we get towards the end of the year and go from there.
I don't think it's out of the question for something like that to happen, but I just keep coming back to this idea of, yeah, you can spend big money on pitching or even, second tier money on pitching. But if you've got somebody in-house that you might be even more affordable, who you already know, who's already having success here, I'd be very motivated to try to get that done.
Yeah, especially a guy like Griffin, who in theory should not cost, an arm and a leg, like you just said. Now, you look at it from his perspective. This is his age 30 season. This is his chance potentially to cash in big time on the open market. Is he going to forego that opportunity? I mean, if I am the agent of Foster Griffin and my client has an ERA under 3 right now and he's in a contract season, I don't know that I'm saying, let's talk extension. Like, I really need to be overwhelmed. So I think this is interesting from each perspective. I think if you're the Nats, why wouldn't you be open to a reasonable, sensible extension with Griffin? If you're Griffin, though, and this is your chance to cash in, I wonder, is it possible that he's like, hey, guys, thanks, but I want to at least see what my value is on the open market come the offseason?
It's 100% fair. And I think the question, who really knows the answer to this, is what will the market be for him? He doesn't have the track record that other guys do just because he hasn't been pitching in the big leagues. But if you've watched him, you would think that other people around the game see what he's done and want to believe that it's legitimate. And so maybe he can get a kind of offer that you'd expect for somebody with much more big league track record. By the same token, he could think in the back of his mind, well, I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go. What if I fall off a cliff here all of a sudden? I may never get this chance again. Do I think it's likely to happen here in the middle of the summer? Probably not. But if I'm the Nats, I'm at least pushing for it. There's no harm in trying to start that process and see if you can do something. Because as I keep saying, they're going to need pitching from somewhere. You're going to lose Mikolas. You're going to lose Littell. Griffin's a free agent. You're going to have to acquire pitching in some way. It seems to me this is the smartest and maybe most affordable way to get a quality pitcher and not have to go bargain basement hunting again next winter.
Hey, are you a law firm partner looking for a better team? Take your 900 OPS to a championship caliber team by contacting Nats Chat sponsor Mason Kalfas, who is the top legal recruiter in the Washington, D.C. market. Mason and his team at Zenith Legal specialize in placing partners, associates, and senior government lawyers at elite firms across D.C. and the country. Zenith has placed attorneys at almost every top law firm in D.C. and New York. And unlike your current firm's innovation committee, Zenith actually built technology that works. Zenith's proprietary candidate app lets lawyers track where they've been submitted and helps Mason's team identify the best opportunities faster and more efficiently. No other legal recruiting firm has anything like this. Mason regularly works with lawyers from the DOJ, SEC, and law firms looking for better platforms, stronger clients, or, let's be honest, a lot more money, because unlike baseball players, lawyers are not stuck under team control while ownership refuses to spend. And if your current partnership meetings feel more hopeless than Mets fans in October, it may be time to make a move. Bet on yourself with the best legal recruiter out there advocating for your future. Call Mason Kalfas today, 202-486-3535. That's 202-486-3535.
Now the wind of the pitch. Swinging a high fly ball, left field deep toward the monster. Wood back to the warning track. He looks up, and it is gone. Into the first row of the Green Monster seats right down the left field line. A home run for Durbin, his 7th of the year, and it's 4-1 Boston.
Well, when it came to Miles Mikolas, he was the Nats starting pitcher for this 6-3 loss at the Red Sox on Monday night. No opener for Mikolas, so with the Nats' usual opener, lefty reliever P.J. Poulin having pitched on each of the previous 2 days. And Mikolas in this game basically had 2 games in 1 game. His final line, 6 runs in 7 innings. Not good. He gave up 9 hits, which were 2 home runs, a double, and 6 singles. He had 3 strikeouts versus no walks. He threw a lot of strikes, 97 pitches, 68 strikes, 29 balls. Now, Mikolas over the first 3 innings allowed 6 runs. But he then retired 14 consecutive batters to end his outing. Mikolas, in a 31-pitch bottom of the first, allowed 4 runs on 2 home runs and 3 singles. He gave up a 1-out, 3-run homer by Wilson Contreras over the Green Monster in left field on a 1-2 pitch for a 3-1 Red Sox lead, and gave up a 2-out solo homer by Caleb Durbin over the Monster for a 4-1 Red Sox lead. Now, these were 2 different homers. The Contreras homer per StatCast a projected 421 feet. The Durbin homer per StatCast a projected 338 feet. Mikolas in the bottom of the second allowed a run on 3 consecutive singles to begin that half inning, and then an RBI sac fly for a 5-1 Red Sox lead. Mikolas, bottom of the third, allowed a run on a 1-out double, and then an RBI sac fly. But Mikolas then tossed perfect 4th, 6th, and 7th innings. He was like a totally different pitcher. This was such a strange outing, although he has done this kind of thing before. And I go back to the Nats' 7-3 loss to the Orioles at Nationals Park on May 17th. Mikolas in that game served as the Nats' bulk pitcher. His final line, 4 runs in 5 2/3 innings, but off a shaky beginning to his outing, he tossed scoreless 5th, 6th, and 7th innings. There is something about Miles Mikolas to where he can settle himself down, adjust in game, and end up giving the Nats length. And sure enough, he did that in this game.
It's a great skill to have. You just wish it didn't have to come after a disaster of a first inning that dug his team into a hole like that. The 2 home run pitches, and especially the one to Contreras, and it's a meatball right over the heart of the plate. There's nothing else you can say about it. Just an awful pitch to a guy who can hit the ball really far. What he came to realize after that one was that he was able to hit the corners a little bit more. The Red Sox were super aggressive against him all night, swinging early in the count. And he used that to his advantage by getting them to chase a little bit. And so he did get some weak contact and some quick outs. And that's what allowed him to go as far into the game, despite he's at 61 pitches through 3 innings. And then he throws 36 pitches over his next 4 innings. That's remarkable. You got to be able to pick up on that quicker, though, and just avoid the middle of the strike zone to good hitters. I don't know what to make of it. In one sense, he did set it up where everybody's fresh and available to go on Tuesdays. Maybe that does help them have a better chance of winning on Tuesday and maybe Wednesday. But he essentially dug them into a kind of a hole where they didn't have that great of a shot of coming back, especially against a good opponent like Suarez. So this is kind of who he is. It's only the 5th time in Nationals history that a pitcher went 7 or more innings, giving up 6 or more runs. Believe it or not, Patrick Corbin never did that. Tanner Roark, the last one in 2018. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not. There was some good take out of it, but those first 3 innings, and particularly the first inning, just set the tone for the rest of the night, and it just didn't give his teammates much of a chance.
Yeah, funny what happens when you don't open for Miles Mikolas. You get a first inning like this one, and if the Nats are going to deploy P.J. Poulin as he was deployed the previous 2 games and aren't going to be trusting another reliever to serve as an opener, this kind of thing unfortunately can happen where Mikolas gets rocked in a first inning like that.
Yeah, so the reason they didn't use the opener in this game, yes, Poulin obviously had pitched the last 2 days, including the 6-out save. But beyond that, they put 2 left-handers on the IL before the game, Mitchell Parker and Richard Lovelady as well. And then they called up Carson Palmquist from AAA. Could they have opened with him? Yeah, like they did when he was up here not that long ago, 5 days ago. The problem is he was the only available left-hander at all for them in this game, which to me meant you have to hold on to him in case there is a matchup later in the game that you want to go with a lefty. And so in a perfect world, you had somebody else to turn to later on. But they start this game knowing they only have Palmquist. And I believe that's the reason they had Mikolas start the game instead of using an opener.
Yeah, and things obviously did not go well. Now, because Mikolas provided the length, the Nats in this game used just 1 relief pitcher, Zach Kent. He tossed a scoreless and hitless bottom of the 8th. And you alluded to this, the Nats on Monday afternoon announcing a bunch of transactions regarding the bullpen. The Nats on Monday afternoon announced having put relief pitcher Mitchell Parker on the 15-day injured list due to left elbow inflammation, having placed relief pitcher Richard Lovelady on the 15-day IL due to a left tricep strain, having recalled reliever Riley Cornelio from AAA Rochester, and having recalled reliever Carson Palmquist from AAA Rochester. And we would expect at least Parker to be out for a while. I guess we'll see with this Lovelady scenario, but we could be seeing Cornelio and Palmquist up here for at least a decent amount.
Yeah, we don't have the official word on Parker yet. He had just gotten an MRI, I think actually Monday afternoon. So we should get some results of that on Tuesday. I'll just tell you, like we said on Sunday, there's definitely a concern here that this is a serious elbow injury. So you hope it's not that case, but I think everyone needs to be prepared for the fact that he's going to be out for a while. Lovelady, we didn't know about previously. Now, if you remember, he pitched 3 days in a row earlier in the week against the Phillies and lost one of those games. Now, he sat out for several days, both because of the workload, but also he had noted to the team at some point in there that his upper arm was not feeling well. And so they also stayed away from him for that purpose. Now they get to Sunday and he says he's good to go. He actually was the one who replaced Parker when he came out of the game with the injury. He had all the time he needed to warm up. He faced only one batter. The plan, according to Blake Butera, was to send him back out there for the following inning. But when he came into the dugout, he said, nope, my upper arm again bothering me. And so they shut him down, gave him the MRI, and that showed a tricep strain. You wouldn't think that's a major injury, but it's definitely something that's going to sideline him for a while. And you just can't help but wonder, pitching those 3 straight days in high leverage spots, you always want to avoid something like that. Did that have a really negative effect on him from a physical standpoint?
Well, we've talked about the Nats enjoying unbelievable injury luck in terms of position players, but the Nats have taken on their fair share of pitching injuries, and especially with relievers in season and with starters going back to injuries, that predate the season. So there is that difference. Very good injury luck regarding position players, but I'd say normal, maybe even bad injury luck when it comes to pitchers here this season. Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
That's driven to left field, hit well, and that one is out of here. A huge 2-run home run by Harry Ford, his 3rd of the year. Last season, he was in Tacoma, hit 16 home runs for the Tacoma Rainiers.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
I was here for close to 11 years, I think it was, and just being back in the city, like I love the city, being back in the park, love the park, was able to see, just coming into the visiting clubhouse, seeing Pookie and Will and that whole group was awesome, and I was out on the field earlier and saw a few front office folks.
Paul Toboni. So we did a session with you guys before this game, addressed a variety of topics, including his thinking regarding the 2026 MLB trade deadline, which still is a ways away, August 3rd at 6 p.m. Eastern. So, of course, so much could change between now and then. But what most struck you from what Toboni had to say?
I think it was just that, the acknowledgement that it's still really far away and this could go in a number of different directions.
We're not going to have clarity on any of that, I think, until we get closer. So we haven't thought through it with any sort of specificity at this point in time.
He wasn't real definitive about anything regarding their plans, but I think he had a valid reason for being. I don't think he was trying to be secretive. I think he's trying to acknowledge, I don't know where we're going to be in the standings come August 3rd. I would love to be in a position where they are contending and he could maybe consider adding pieces instead of subtracting them. But he also has to acknowledge the fact that they may cool off. It doesn't even have to be a lot. If they're just a couple games under 500 and staring up at a bunch of teams in front of them, then he has to approach that differently.
We're constantly thinking about like, hey, what it could look like if we're on one side of it or the other, trying to thread the needle between the two.
I think there's that acknowledgement that they are, evaluating over the next month and concocting scenarios that could go in either direction. Now, you might say, and in fact, I even asked him, particularly about the bullpen, if there's any opportunity to do something sooner than that. Do you have to wait until you get closer to the trade deadline? And he said, yes, there's always that possibility, and I'm sure he would love to do it. The problem is twofold here. Number one, there just aren't very many teams right now that know they are out of it and going to be sellers. There are so many teams in both the American League and the National League that could make the case that they're in the wild card race. And so are you going to give up a veteran piece here at the end of June if you think one good month and you're right back in the middle of this thing? So that's number one.
There are a lot of teams that are still trying to see if they can, put themselves in a position to go for it. And usually that means they're less inclined to make deals.
And number two, because there aren't that many sellers right now, well, if Paul Toboni calls them and says, hey, we need bullpen help, what would it take to get insert reliever's name here? That opposing GM has all the advantage in the world, and he knows that Toboni's desperate, and he knows that he can wait as long as he wants because you get closer to August 3rd, you get more teams involved, and you can start, playing them off each other for the best offer. So, while obviously it would be very helpful to not have to wait that long and to try to address the bullpen right now, that's easier said than done, and it doesn't matter how much the Nats want to try to improve. It takes somebody else playing along who's willing to make them an offer that they think is reasonable and not asking for the moon for a rental reliever.
Yeah, and as much attention as the trade deadline gets, honestly, if the Nats are going to be good and are going to make a true run at the postseason, it's going to be on the backs of the guys who are currently here. Because, realistically speaking, what would they do regarding the trade deadline? Acquire a reliever or two? Maybe those guys would help. But it's not going to matter if, James Wood and CJ Abrams aren't doing well, or if Foster Griffin falls off, or if the Nats defense, which has, been better, all of a sudden goes back to being really bad, et cetera. And so, I think that's the key. I think sometimes we as a MLB media get too caught up in the trade deadline when it's no, it's about the talent on the team, because the deadline ultimately, how many trades are you going to make? And so often these acquisitions are either not that helpful or just inconsequential. The guy's kind of meh. You're only getting him for 2 months? In this case, it'll be less than 2 months if you don't get the guy until that deadline. It is interesting with all of these teams in the mix and with the deadline late, not until August 3rd, what the thinking is going to be from these teams. Because like you said, you have teams that right now can realistically say to themselves, we're in it. We should at the very least stand pat. I think we do have to give this a few more weeks before you really can truly start to get a sense of who is a seller, who is a buyer beyond the obvious teams that are out there right now. The other thing is this. Do you think Toboni is going to do one or the other in terms of buying or selling? Or do you think it's possible that he does neither and he says we just stand pat? Because, that is an approach you can take. Normally, I'm not a fan of that. To me, it's you got to pick one direction or the other. But I do think that this Nats team this season, this might be a case where you can make a compelling argument for just standing pat and not selling, but maybe not buying if things aren't that good. I wonder what Toboni would say to that.
Yeah, you could do that if you are in the race, but not really leading it, and you just don't think you're ready to give up anything of the future to try to patchwork the rest of your roster. You can do that. And you can also say, maybe the offers for guys like Griffin and Mikolas and Littell just aren't overwhelming. So let's stick with it and play it out. Yes, you could do that. I would also be curious. This is going the complete opposite direction. Is there a scenario in which he kind of both buys and sells at the same time? And I was thinking about this today. What if there is actually a very bold move to be made that would involve trading somebody who has more than a year of control? And I'm just throwing a name out there, but like a Luis Garcia. Okay. What if you sold high on him, moved him, and in return, we're getting, let's say, a pitcher who wouldn't just help you the rest of this year, but might actually be under control beyond that? that's the kind of move that like you're both selling, but you're maybe helping to address another area that could help you not just this year, but maybe even beyond that. I'd be curious. Toboni and his team do strike me as the kind of group that might try to get creative like that and do something unexpected with some bigger names that would constitute both buying and selling at the same time. I don't know if that's where they're going to go with it, but I could see them at least exploring some things like that in a way to both sell high on what you have without necessarily acknowledging that you're just building for 2028, but that you're still trying to win now and maybe even next year as well.
Yeah, for sure. And your acquisition doesn't have to be a rental. Like, it can be someone who is under team control beyond this season. You are allowed to do that. And it would actually make a ton of sense for them to do that. I mean, I don't think Toboni in any way should abandon his bigger picture plan. I think he's got to stick to the plan, stick to the process. It's working so well right now. The idea becomes, okay, within that plan, within the process, there, of course, is wiggle room, right? You don't have to be like, a hardliner to where you can't deviate from anything that you imagine going into the season. And so you stick to the bigger picture plan, while at the same time, are there maybe some things you can do to help the team this season and beyond? And I think what you just described would fall under that category of, if you get someone who can help you this season, but who is under team control beyond this season, well, then, you're kind of helping yourself in both ways. You're addressing this season and the future. And I don't think anybody would have a problem with that. The Nats do have an abundance of outfielders, especially when you look at the minor league system. Do you maybe deal from that abundance, given that, you feel pretty good about where the Nats are from an outfield perspective at the major league level? You wonder if there might be a deal to be done in that regard. But, I think the way Toboni spoke to you guys is right, which is, man, we're still more than a month away, and like the landscape could change so dramatically in just a few weeks.
We're still more than a month away. Like, I don't know what we're going to be thinking a month from now. You know what I mean?
So who knows what we'll be talking about, in say 10, 15 days. Like, there are a lot of possibilities.
It's very easy to be a GM from the outside on June 29th. It's very hard to actually be the GM of a team through all this and not like ride the highs and the lows. It would be very easy to look at what happened in the last week and say, man, if we just had a couple other reliable relievers, we'd be right in the thick of this thing right now, having just won a series from the Phillies, won a series from the Orioles. We're flying high. Let's go address that one area that we need. But if you're Paul Toboni, you can't really think like that. You have to think bigger picture. You have to not just react to what's happened in the recent past, but think about what may be coming up in the future. Think about what you've seen so far from this team and what is sustainable and what is not sustainable, and then make your decisions that help put you in a good position to bolster the team now, but really more than that, to bolster your team in the future. That's what this is all about. And I'm sure that Toboni would say that in his mind, it is not worth it to go after 86 wins right now and try to win a wild card and then most likely get eliminated relatively early in the postseason, as opposed to trying to win 95 games in a year or two with a team that actually has a chance to do something big in October. Of course, that's what the goal should be. But when you're playing as well as they are, and when it is as wide open as it is, it's awfully tempting to say, is there any way we can just get to 86 this year without hurting our chances of getting to 95 in the future?
Yeah. Can you have the cake and eat it too? Sometimes the answer is yes. And maybe this is one of those situations in which the answer is yes. You tell us what you think. Hit us up on X at Nats_chat. You can find us on Blue Sky at Nats Chat Podcast. You can email us natschatpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our website too, natschatpodcast.com, at which you can purchase a Nats Chat Podcast t-shirt. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat, courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by Mason Kalfas. He is the top legal recruiter in Washington, D.C. Mason and his team at Zenith Legal specialize in placing partners, associates, and senior government lawyers at elite firms across Washington, D.C. and the country. You can reach him at 202-486-3535. Game 2 for the Nats at the Red Sox Tuesday night at 7:10. The Nats have listed Cade Cavalli as their probable starting pitcher for the game. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat Podcast.
Here's the pitch. Swinging a ground ball over the first base line. It's fair. Down the right field line. Hits off the sidewall. Ruiz scores. Here comes Chaparro. He scores. Meade heads for third. Abrams into second. Snapping his 0 for 16 with a 2-run double down the right field line. He drives in his 58th and 59th runs of the year.
I think what he's done a really good job of this year that I think he's been good at in the past, but not necessarily to this degree, is his ability to get on base and take his walks, but then also when he's letting it loose in the zone, damaging balls. And so not to say he's exceeded our expectations. I think we had pretty high expectations for him, but it's just been really fun to see him kind of deliver on these goals that he's had.